Today's video is going to be a slight departure from my workbench build. I'm going to take a break from this build and help myself out with creating a thing for this tool. So this is a number 71 Stanley router. It's as Paul Sellers famously calls it, a cordless router. World's first. You see the markings in the bottom here. When I use a router with this face as a reference, it marks the reference face because of these rails. So I'm going to try to get this thing to be a little steady by putting a block of wood as a wooden sole for this router. They'll be like this, and then the whole thing will operate together. And that is the plan. What I have here is a 1 by 3 or 4 inch stock of red oak that I cut from. Is 1 by 4. So it's a little under 4 inches. I need to resaw it, so it's about half an inch. And I need to resaw it because I don't need a very thick sole for this. I only have so much. I only have an inch of adjustment for the blade of the router. So I need this to be a little thinner. So I'm going to try to resaw this thing. I've never resawed anything before. I'm expecting this to be a tragedy, but we're going to do it, and let's go and see how I manage to figure this thing out. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a gauge, set it to half an inch with this square, and it doesn't have to be exact, and I'm going to mark this thing. But before I mark it, I need a reference edge. I need an edge that is perfectly flat. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to surface plane it, make sure it is twist free. I just sharpened the blades of my plane and I set them so they can be flat, and this is looking fairly okay. I'm gonna need a couple more shavings and it'll be done. There. It's hollow on the back end. This looks pretty flat, and I'm going to use my bench hooks here. I'm going to use my winding sticks to see if they're pretty parallel. They're pretty parallel enough. I'm going to call this my face. Don't need to square it, I just need to use this edge to register the gauge. I'm going to try and saw this so I can leave the gauge line in. That way when I'm done sawing, I can plane the sawn surface down to the gauge line. I'm going to try to use a finer saw to make a curve. I'm going to try to be a little away. It's too far close to the line. Try this side. Ow. So the saw slipped and I was holding down here and it hit my hand and I got a little nick and it started bleeding, so I went and got it bandaged. I'm glad it was a hand saw and not a power tool. So gotta be more careful. Let's see how I can resaw now. I tried resawing a few different ways, but it wasn't really working. I don't really have a good way to hold the piece here. So what I decided is to make some stop cuts and just chisel into it and just have at it at that way. So that really worked really well. Whew. See again. And they're pretty close. And that is good. Okay. Here's my resawn piece of wood. Man, that was a lot of work. All I need is to lay this out, and this side with the face mark, I'll make that my main side, and that'll be the sole basically. And I'm gonna mark and drill some holes here. There it is. I'm going to center it just by sight. That looks good enough. I tried a few ways to cut these holes here without having a vise. I can't really get a good grip on the jigs, on the brace and bits, so I ended up using a jigsaw. Didn't really have a choice. I couldn't really make a very good hole without it. The coping saw didn't really work well, and I tried using a file to get it out, but it wasn't doing it. A rasp would have done a better job. But anyway, I just used a quick jigsaw for this thing, got the hole done, and now that it's done, I can shape it and refine it with a file and be done with it. Looks like it will clear. There you go, it's done. Tighten it. Loosen it a little bit too much. Anyway, as you can see, the sides are riding very well on the board. This was a sharpening die holder that I was going to make, and I failed at this one. I made the other one over there, but you can see how this thing has been chewed up because of the base, of how this base was. But now that I have a smooth base, and I'm going to put shellac on it later, I'll do a video about that. But now that I have a smooth base, I can have it ride on it just fine. As you can see, it works pretty well. It rides on this pretty smoothly, and that's what I wanted it to do. I think sharpening the blade on this thing will go a long way, but this is pretty much done, and this chamfers are great. It's riding on the edges, it's not catching, which is what I wanted also. So anyway, this is done. This was way more work than I was thinking of, but I'm glad it's over. Thank you for liking and subscribing to my channel. If you haven't, please subscribe. I do post behind the scenes photos on Instagram and Facebook, so find me there, and I will see you in the next video.